So John Bommeraveni Joseph is one that has come into the GRC space with a big bang, for lack of a better word. And why did I say so? Because he has done quite a lot. You know, John is not just a cybersecurity and GRC professional, and he spans over a decade. And he's coming from a place where he's done HR, compliance, operations, you know, governance. He is certified to the ISO 27001 Information Security Management Systems, also AI Governance, which is ISO 42001, and you know he's vast in audits and governance programs. He's an AWS solutions architect, has the Qualys VMDR, and also privacy ops certification, and he's on the top 1% of the Try Hack Me platform. That means he's done a whole lot there. And then his expertise spans, like we already said, GRC, information security management systems, implementing AI management systems and auditing, risk assessment, policy development, SOC 2, NIST readiness, and third-party management and security awareness, amongst other things. So the voice you would hear after me going off right now would be the voice of John, and then you would now we would have to hear what he has to say. Thank you very much. So John, over to you.
Thank you so much, Moses, for the wonderful introduction about me, and everyone who is on the call today. Very good morning, and thank you so much for joining. Before this session, I just want to give a quick history of me and Moses. Last couple of weeks back, I released a GRC practical program. In 2 weeks, it got almost 2,400 active users and being accessed across 32 countries. When the lab was released, Moses was the first person to get in touch with me. Hey, John, we need to do a session. Our audience needs to understand GRC is beyond theory. So let's make this happen for the InfoShield students. So I really take this opportunity, Moses. I'm so glad to be a part of this session. So let's get started. Moses has given enough introduction about me. I don't want to waste time. Let me share the screen. Okay. Let me know whether you all can see the screen.
Yeah, it's up now.
Great. So in today's session, when me and Moses were talking, instead of regular GRC program, we wanted to do something different. We wanted to build a practical GRC program from scratch so that each and everyone not just understand, but they can also practice it. So that is the reason I added a tagline, no theory, just real GRC. So let's get started. Before we start this session, I want to talk about, or I want to start this session with my favorite quote, because this particular quote changed me how I look my personal growth, or it resonates more with my GRC journey. Like Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust the dots will somehow connect in the future. Because when I started in GRC, I was doing the same mistake. I was looking forward, trying to connect the dots. I was chasing certification. I did almost 20 certifications in cybersecurity and GRC. I was running behind framework, like Moses said, ISO 27001, ISO 42001, NIST, COVID, CMMC, PCI-DSS, HIPAA. I read each and everything. But one thing I didn't understand is that, okay, I'm aware of these fundamentals, but what do GRC analysts actually do in their job? What type of meetings they attend, what type of everyday tasks they have, how do they identify risk, how do they choose controls. This was the biggest problem. Then I realized, okay, let me connect the dots backward, understand from a perspective of a GRC analyst how they do it, how they control it, what type of evidence they provide, how they be prepared for the audit. So these things made me interest, and this is the reason actually, if you know GRC or you can do GRC, that idea sparked and I started building the lab. My story, why I built this lab, as even though I had 10 years of experience in HR and recruitment, I was in touch with the hiring managers. I have placed more than 5,000 candidates across United States, Canada, India. After placing all 5,000 IT candidates, being in touch with the hiring managers, tech leads, and project managers, I was having a daily conversation with them. I understand the requirements, what type of candidates they require. I very well know that they needed real work, not just theories or certification. I always had this mindset. When I had this mindset, I completed course, I did certifications, but still I was not happy because certifications were mostly theory. They don't teach you real workflow, what workflow are used in the real companies. So what I did something crazy. When I used to be a recruiter, I used to take my call and then reach out to hiring managers, understand about requirements. The same way I started reaching out to CISOs and GRC managers in LinkedIn. Not one, not two, more than 50 GRC managers. I asked them one simple question. What do you guys actually do? How does your meeting happen? What time, what different departments you guys coordinate with? What is that everyday task that you do? All comes up to the same thing. What is their roles and responsibility? To my surprise, not everyone was giving me, oh, I'm learning ISO 27001, I'm memorizing this, or I'm practically drafting the policies, or I'm manually doing everything, which made me wonder, okay, this is how, if it is, well, let me start with the real work. I'm not going to run behind certifications or any courses. What to do next? I wanted to practice. I went ahead and searched for GRC tools. Most of the GRC tools, you need signups where you need to install. What if someone who doesn't have a very good laptop, and if you want to run it, it's impossible. And the premiums, the enterprise, like $500, $600, even though after spending that money, you can't show it proof. You can have all the enterprise softwares are built for companies for real work. No practical tool is built for learners. I understood that gap. I took the real inputs from the hiring managers and start building it. I built a platform which is more than a cool UI tool, more than a checklist simulator, a safe place where each and everyone can practice, can make mistakes, can break things. By end of the day, they generate artifacts and can walk into an interview with confidence that they're going to get the job. So this was my story behind building the lab. The industry problem: checkbox GRC versus practical GRC. All of you need to understand one thing. If you are trying to get into GRC, if you're trying to study GRC, you will fall under the category checkbox GRC. Practical GRC are the real GRC analysts or the people who work in companies who do GRC every day on their day-to-day basis. What happens here is that everyone who starts in GRC try to understand frameworks, treat controls like a shopping list. They want to just checkbox everything, don't understand how those controls will be mapped to frameworks, how will they use it. They have zero idea. They're just running behind ISOs, NIST. One thing you all need to understand here is that frameworks are your guidance. It's not a to-do list. It is specifically designed, interpreted towards your business, what type of systems you have, what type of data you have, how is your risk. So it's not same. Not all controls are applicable to all the companies, all the applications, or all the infrastructure. Now, if we talk about the practical GRC, when I was in touch with the CSOs and GRC managers, after understanding what type of candidates they are looking for, they are looking for someone with confidence who can show proof in an interview, not just understand, not just explaining definitions, who can show how can they start GRC program, how can they identify risk, how can they control mappings. So a real practical GRC program is a repeated workflow, and then you generate artifacts. If you can generate good artifacts, then you can do the real GRC job. This is the difference between a checkbox GRC and a practical GRC. In order for someone who want to come out of checkbox GRC and to practice somewhere else, this is the lab. This lab approach not only makes you learn, but it also forces you to do the task, which will eventually convert you from checkbox GRC to practical GRC. This is the whole entire program in one picture, and I deliberately made it simple so that each one of you can take this blueprint, use it in your project, use it in your workflow, tweak it a little bit, and understand it. The practical GRC program blueprint in 6 steps. So we'll start one by one. Most of the people, when they start building a GRC program, they start in the middle. They don't know where to start. Some start with assets, some start with risk. But the real problem happens if you don't know the scope. If you don't know what your company does, where is your company located, what data types you touch, then it is difficult. You need to understand the scope of the business. By understanding the scope of the business, the local laws and regulations will come into place. The second step is know the environment. Once you know the scope of the business, try to understand the environment, what different data we have, how the data flows from one application to another application, what type of inventories we have, which inventories are critical, which inventories are not that critical. You need to have a clear understanding. And then comes the risk assessment, which is step 3. In step 3, we do the real risk work like threats, vulnerabilities, likelihood, impact. This is the why question behind every security issue that you will have. If you have a security question, then this is your why. Because risk assessment is very, very important and most crucial part in building a GRC program. Now comes the control. As I told you guys, if you stop treating controls like a shopping list and choose only what matters for your application or what matters for your business, because controls, we cannot simply select each and every control. For example, a healthcare company might have different controls. A software company might have a different controls. If you are working in GRC in any of the domain, in any of the industry, understanding what the scope of the business is required. That's when you know which controls to pick. For example, if it is an insurance company and there is a software as a service company or a IT service based company. For any IT service based company, you don't need to have ISO 27001. You can just do SOC 2, that should be absolutely fine. But if you don't know that, that's when the real problem starts. Evidence, monitoring, prove it. In GRC, this is like a golden phrase, what I call. If you can't prove it, then it's not there. So in GRC, evidence collection is important, very, very important, and control ownership is also very important. Then comes the step 6, reports. By end of the day, we are building this GRC program because we are answerable to the management, because we need to show how much improvement have we brought to our security posture, how much improvement have we brought to our risk assessment. And this is, again, it's a loop. This is step by step process. Once you complete it, you go back, you repeat, you go back, you repeat. This is the same workflow. You can have add multiple steps to it by based on your company size, based on your company data, based on your company services. This is my favorite part, the proof pack, what you should walk away with. If you want to win in GRC, you need to bring proof. When I spoke with those GRC managers, 90% of the candidates, after they complete GRC, they do some certifications, they write some policies, have some risk register and spreadsheet. If you are taking that to an interview, you're not alone. There are other 99% of the people who are doing the same thing. What you need to bring is proof, and what I call that proof is called a proof pack. A proof pack is nothing but a set of artifacts that shows that you can actually work. For example, we'll start with scope notes. A scope notes shows you shows the employer that what applies to your business. You understand the overall exposure of the environment or the business. Then understanding the asset and data, as I told you guys, understanding inventory and then having it mapped out, not as a perfect diagram, but you know what type of inventories you have in your enterprise and how data travels. This is very, very important. Most people don't know how their systems are connected. If you don't know how your systems are connected, how you going to select your controls? Because this is very important. So understanding assets and data. Then comes the risk register. Always have a risk register with probably 5 risk with treatment plans. When you're going for an interview, the employer or the hiring manager will ask you, have you ever worked with any risk register? Instead of saying, yes, I have worked, you can show the proof. Hey, this is what I did. These are my top risks. This is why I rated them as top risk, which gives you which gives the interviewer a much level different perspective about you. And then control mapping. A control mapping is very, very important because this shows the employer that you know how to control, how to map controls to frameworks. It can be any frameworks, ISO, NIST, SOC 2, but you should know how to map controls to frameworks. Evidence checklist. Who is the owner? How often you validate those evidence? Because this is also something very important. And nowadays with GRC engineering, evidence collection is being automated. So if you can build automation and then have screenshots of it, that would be absolutely amazing. 99, almost 100% of the GRC candidates will never carry this executive summary to their interview. Why? Because we haven't thought about it. Everyone who teaches us only teaches us about asset, risk, controls, frameworks, policies, documentation, evidence. End of the day, you have to translate risk to top level management. You are the one who communicates it. So having that executive risk summary, at least even a one page, a brief summary about how you will translate risk to the upper level management. If you do this, you are ahead of 90% of the people who appear in an interview. You will have a huge hand towards that role. As we discussed, as Moses said, GRC is not only theory; it's actually practical. Uh, I didn't know it after building the lab. When I started practicing, I really loved it. I want to go back and do the projects again and again, again and again. Every time I did, I learned something new. So in today, after this session, we will do a live project, an ISO risk assessment for a company called Techstart. Techstart Inc. The deliverables will be, we will identify assets, we will build a risk register, we will plan out treatments, and then we will map controls. This is the real workflow which is used in the companies. There will be some sort of small changes here and there, but this is the bare backbone of any GRC program, which I have used the same workflow across my lab and all the projects in all the guided missions. Why GRC right now is a huge opportunity? I'll give you guys facts plus reality. As you all know, the more number of cyber attacks are happening, the more number of AI is evolving, the more regulations are happening. Because we very recently we have seen many hacks involving financial institutions, social media hacks. There are targeted hacks which are happening. So governments are bringing in more strict regulation. There are more stricter audits. There are more vendor scrutiny. They need people. Initially, probably 4 5 years back, they were not a diversified role like risk analyst, complaints analyst, third party risk management analyst. But now we can see this different roles, because the more number of regulation happens, the more demand it increases. There will be always cybersecurity workforce gap is still massive in there. You might see number of requirements for GRC. It might ask you like 2 to 3 years of experience, 4 to 5 years of experience. After speaking with the hiring managers, even they know that hiring freshers for this job is little risky, because you are someone who will be speaking with the top level management. You are responsible for the audit if they are having any audits, other stuff. They want someone with practical experience. But here what's happening is that we are learning checkbox. We are going through definitions. We are just reading it out, building something which is not completely practical. That's where the gap exists. That's where the workforce gap exists. If you are practical, it will be easy for you. And again, accountability pressure is increasing day by day for the big enterprises, because governments are behind them. They need a formal disclosure on what they are doing. For example, in recent times, you guys have might heard about Cloud, founded by Peter Scheinberg, which again, OpenAI, he joined OpenAI, and the offer was close to $1 billion. It was not a successful AI agent that he has built, but it created something absolutely new, where AI agents can talk to AI agents, can build something completely out of no control. Imagine this. You ask ChatGPT, hey, how I build a risk register, where it just gives you, okay, you can start here, add this, this is how you rate risk. But what if if you tell ChatGPT, can you build a risk register for me? That's what Peter Scheinberg did, and that's where OpenAI had almost 22 to 23 plugins for that cloud bot. Again, when they got amalgamated, now the accountability increases, because companies, the more the disclosure, the government needs it, because the European government is behind big fines. So having a formal disclosure is under a huge pressure for big enterprises. Early stage advantage. When I say early stage advantage, yes, we are early in this GRC journey, because as I told you guys, most of the people learn checkbox GRC. But if you can learn practical GRC, build skills before the crowd, you will definitely stand out. And if you're starting from zero on how to approach GRC, this is my advice: simple and practical. Do not chase frameworks, and don't try to master each and every framework. Trust me, even with 20, 30 years of experience, CISOs and GRC managers still don't know the classifications and categories. They don't have it in their mind. So start with one workflow, understand it better, produce an artifact, try to explain it like a story. If you walk into an interview, even though if it is only one workflow, if you can able to produce evidence out of it and be confident in an interview, simple, you will get the job. My mantra towards building this more practical is that if you do it one time, you have a project. If you 4 times, you have a portfolio. But if you do it 6 times, you're ready for interview. This is what most people lack. They stop at one project, they stop at two projects. Because end of the day, when you join a company, you are not only working on one project. There will be multiple ISO certifications for multiple different applications in the same company. So the more you practice, the more better you will get in this field. What happens next? So next, no more slides. As I said, this is not theory. We are moving directly into the lab where we're going to do the project. Let me share my monitor so that you guys can see the lab. Okay. Yes. So before we start going into the lab, let's see the stats and then labs. Yep. As I said, before 2 weeks, I shipped this project. And what happened in 2 weeks? There are more than 2,400 active users, and their interactions is 68,000. 34,000 views across the lab, and an average session spent is 7 minutes for 14 seconds. So people are not just scrolling, they are not just coming to the lab and then just reading ISO and leaving. If you see the real stat, most of the views are from the GRC practice lab. Almost 33,000 interactions in GRC practice lab, where 2.4K active users were working on it. And if you see the bounce rate, it's 34.6%. So now I have done enough with my stats. Let's jump into the lab and we'll actually start doing the project. Yeah. So before we start going into the project, let's do a quick walkthrough of the lab. If anyone have used it, you guys know we have 39 tabs in it. So we are not going through each and one of the tab because due to the time limitation, it will take at least a good 2 to 3 hours to complete the whole lab. What we will be focusing is that each and every tab that you see here, starting from start here, frameworks, GRC glossary, practice session, guided missions, interview preparation, project, portfolio builder. When I when I wanted to practice GRC, this is all the place I got stuck. So I took those learning and I embedded into this lab. So if you're absolutely new, if you don't know what GRC is, if you want to practice, you can start in the tab start here, because this is the practical GRC skills which will give you hands-on simulation experience. If you guys can remember what we discussed in the 6-step GRC process, this is the same workflow. We start with assets, identify risk, then we add controls, we will add treatments, we test those treatments whether the controls are working or not, and then we generate artifacts, which is evidence. So in the lab, if you guys can click clear, everything goes to zero. Basically, the lab is blank right now. If you have any bigger projects, want to implement anything, you guys can directly do it. Or if you want to just start out, you can just start out, click load demo so that it will give you every clear information about each tab. So I clicked demo, it automatically added assets, risk, controls. So basically when you click it, you will have a clear understanding. Okay, these are the assets. These are all again demo assets, which is not linked to any of the project, but it will give you an understanding about this overall lab. Then comes the frameworks tab. In frameworks, my most difficult part was how can I integrate not just one framework. I don't want to stick with only ISO 27001, or I don't want to stick with only NIST. If I'm providing a library, I don't want the students to go out of this lab to consume information. Sometimes what happens if you're working in a spreadsheet, you're building a risk register, or you're mapping controls, you have to quickly jump around different tabs to understand, okay, which control is in which category, whether this is good or not, how can I able to integrate it or not. So I have added 10 major compliance frameworks and it has over 480 plus controls. So basically, if you want to learn about ISO 27001, visit here, click ISO 27001, and then you can read about all the controls, which basically has everything. Or if you want to read it based on category based, just click access controls. If you're working on a control which is related to access control, you don't need to read all the 93 controls and then find out which is suitable for you. So I made it easy. Come here, directly search for access control. You will find all the access control related category related controls here, or you can just click asset management, data protection, network security. It will be way easier. On not only on ISO 27001, I have included NIST. Okay, let me click all categories. I have included NIST, SOC 2, PCI DESS, HIPAA, GDPR, CAS, CMMC, Hobbit, and this is the recent new addition, ISO 42001. My favorite part. I don't know, I'm biased to this tab, the GRC glossary. This GRC glossary has around 185 terms. So imagine when I started learning GRC, I didn't know what risk is. I used to go to ChatGPT and go to Google, search about what is audit, what is risk, what is vulnerability, and then come back, complete my course. So it took me a lot of time jumping around tab to tab. I wanted something in all in one place. If you are going for an interview, if you just want to refresh the fundamentals or the glossary, you have 185 glossary here. Each one has a simple description where it will be useful for you guys to explain in an interview. Starting from access control, availability, breach, bring your own device, CIA triad, compliance risk, confidentiality, control environment, and this goes on. This was the reason I built not just one type of. I could add only governance glossaries and leave the rest. I added penetration tester. I have added SOC like vulnerability assessment, zero trust, vulnerability, trust service criteria. Each and everything is here. So it will be easy for you guys to just go through, read about it if you have any doubts. And most importantly, this has a search feature. If you want to search, go ahead, search it, you will easily get it. For example, SLA, service level agreement. Okay. See, and this is all again divided by categories. If you want to only learn about compliance, you will have it. If you want to learn the core, GRC. If you want to learn only frameworks, governance, privacy, resilience, risk, security, this will be a helpful tab for you guys. And then we have practice sections. Practice sessions is for someone who's completely new, who doesn't know, need guidance in each step. If you haven't completed the full course, but you still want to practice it, this is a guided practice scenario. What you guys can do is that go through each by each practice scenario where you will have 4 guided steps. It will tell you what type of assets to add. It will give you a sample example assets that you can use, and then guided missions, which is similar to practice session, but this is little deeper, little longer. If you guys can see the time frame here, build your first register. It has 5 steps, but it won't give you any examples, but it will guide you. It will make sure how you think as a GRC analyst. It takes a little bit of time, 15 minutes, 25 minutes, 20 minutes, but it's worth the time that you are spending here. Once you complete all the, it has like 22 different steps. Once you complete it, you will understand each and every tab, which is 39 tabs, which is here. It will be way cakewalk for you guys. Interview preparator. Once you complete any mission here, for example, if I load data, it automatically completed the first build your first risk register. Based on this completion, your interview prep generator will generate interview questions. So basically, tell me about risk assessment you conducted. These are the interview questions I basically stole from GRC managers and CISOs, CISOs. These are the almost the exact same questions that they ask you based on your project. Tell me about your risk assessment you conducted. Imagine you did the mission, but you don't know how to explain it. Just click show answer, it will show you. I conducted the risk assessment, identified 12 risks across different categories, including access control, application security, availability, and it the wording I have used is that it is a natural flow. It feels like you're explaining something to your friend. It doesn't show it like you're reading out definitions. And then projects. This projects, we have 12 total projects. Each project is from a different industry. Let's start with Techstart. This is a SaaS cloud service. FinSecure banking, this one is financial service. It allows you to do third party risk management project. And we have data analytics platform. This is e-commerce, healthcare technology, cloud infrastructure, critical infrastructure. If any one of you from oil and gas industry, electricity, from critical infrastructure, we also have a project for you. And then we have regulatory technologies companies, we have digital banking, and this was the recent addition which I have added, artificial intelligence company. Again, retail and e-commerce, I also included manufacturing. In order to complete all this project, it will take good amount of time. But once you guys do it, I'm not telling to complete all the 12 projects. If you can complete one project, redo the project again and again, so that you can just, even if someone wakes up you from your sleep, you can just wake up and say, I identified 5 risks, I have scored this is inherent versus residual risk, I have mapped these controls, because that level of clarity will give you after completing the project. So what we do is that, as I promised, we'll start with one project. We're going to use the same workflow which is already integrated here. We'll start by adding 3 critical assets, and anyone, if you want to follow along, I hope Moses has shared the lab link as well. So while I'm explaining, if anyone wants to practice and follow along, you guys can go ahead. So we'll start with Techstart Inc. If you see here, can anyone say in the chat what this is? Is my screen visible? Yeah. Yes, Abubakar.
Okay, so can we wait till after the session, then we will take the questions.
Oh, okay, sure, no problem, no problem. So what the description that you guys are seeing is what the scope that we have discussed in the six steps of building a practical GRC program. Let's start reading out the scope. Techstart Inc is a SaaS company and they do cloud services. The project that we are going to do is the ISO 27001 risk assessment project for cloud migration. They have 500 employees. We have to complete 4 tasks in order to complete this project. Techstart Inc is a business to business, B2B based SaaS company, and it's migrating their customer database containing 5 million plus records from on premise to AWS. So, what we understand here is that this is a SaaS company. They initially had their own data centers. Now they are migrating from their own on-premise data center to cloud, AWS, and they are pursuing ISO 27001 certification in order to meet enterprise client requirements. Okay, they are planning to go for ISO 27001 certification to get more clients or to meet clients' requirements. Here, your role is GRC analyst. As a GRC analyst, what you need to do is that you need to identify critical assets, assess migration risk, implement security controls aligned with Annex A. So we're going to start doing the project. When you guys can click start, it will directly take you to the assets inventory tab. So here we will add our asset. But before we add our asset, we should know that if you don't know what systems exist in your business, you cannot do risk properly. So in just few minutes, we will understand what systems exist, where customer data lives, which environments matter, and who owns it. So we'll start with asset one. uh, if you guys are absolutely new, you don't know what to fill in, we also have an option here called load example. When you click it, it automatically loads an example so that you guys can use it. Here I'm not going to load an example. We are doing an actual project. So the first one, let's assume the first asset, since it's a SaaS based company, they will be having a web application, definitely, for sure. Okay, since this is an application, the type will be application. Here, the classification is high. And who owns this asset? Who is the owner of the asset? If something goes wrong, who is responsible? Here, the engineering team. Let's assume the engineering team is responsible for this application. Since this is a customer facing web application, it will be in production. So let's write the description: customer facing, public facing, customer web application used for account access. Why do they have web applications? As while we were reading the scope, we understood that they are migrating from on-premise to AWS. They are transferring 5 million plus customer records. So this is very crucial. We will add account access and transactions. It also processes, since it's a customer, personal identification information and authentication data. This is how we just added one asset. How many assets we need to add? We need to add 3. We just completed 1. So let's add 2 more. If there is an application, obviously if they have a customer database, customer records, all those records needs to get saved in a database, right? So let's add one more asset, customer production database. This is a database, primary database. This is, I would classify it critical because database comes ahead before application. The reason why, because it has customer data. If your application goes down, it has less impact. Where your customer data is going in hands of a threat actor, is it's way big, huge. You will end up in fines. There are regulations that you have to protect the customer data. So I'm classifying it as critical. We will add since this is a database, we will add infrastructure team as the owner. Again, it's in the production environment, we leave as it is. Since this is the primary database storing customer personal identification information, let's assume they also store credentials. What else they store? Since this is a service-based tech company, they can also store transactions record. That's how we are done with our second asset. What we will be doing is that now instead of adding the third asset, let's click load example. The reason behind is that we can again to show you guys, we can also what do you call, modify it. What does a company has, guys? One more thing, let's have something not critical, medium critical. uh, Employee laptops, right? Employee laptops, yep. See, employee laptops. This is an endpoint. Attackers love endpoints. The reason behind is that that's where it starts. Phishing emails. This is the easiest way to get into your system. Medium classification. Who owns it? IT operation. Environment. It's again a production environment. This is a company issued employee laptop for daily operation and administrative access. We are done. What is this saying? Asset registered. Next step. Now identify what risk threaten this asset. Think what threat could exploit vulnerability. Because I love that line. When you are adding, when you are trying to identify a risk, I always write this risk in this format. Threats exploits vulnerability, causing impact to asset. I'll show it. I'll show you guys in when you click again, it is again taking you to risk to completed asset. Now we are here to identify risk. See, this is where this is what I was talking about. Threat exploits vulnerability, causing impact to asset. So any risk that you are writing, for example, if you can clearly see here external attacker is the threat. Exploits, what are they exploiting? Vulnerability. Here the vulnerability is weak multi-factor authentication. So what is causing data breach? It shows you an example. So based on the example, you guys can write your risk. So here we will add, since this is a web application, what we do is that external attacker. If you guys can notice, I'm following the same pattern. Here the threat is the external attacker. Okay, the vulnerability is weak multi-factor authentication. So what they are causing? They're causing data breach is what we saw in the example. But here we can change it. They're causing unauthorized access to customer database. This the, since they are unauthorized accessing the customer database, the category falls under access control. But apart from access control, for risk, we have different categories, whether it's an application security, it's a data protection, availability, complaints, vendor risk, physical security, human error, and sometimes the category goes beyond. So you can click other and then continue. For now, this risk is into access control category, so I'm adding it. Status open. So let's keep all the risk open so that we can look at the risk register. After adding treatments, we can see how it differentiates. Likelihood is like how likely it is to happen. Is it starts from 1 to 5? If it is 5, it almost certain it happens. 4 is likely to happen. 3 is like possible if may happen. 2 is like unlikely whether it might happen or not. On based on the risk, if you guys can see here, external attacker exploits weak multi-factor authentication. This happens all the time. So I'm choosing likelihood as 4. What happens if someone authorized your customer database? The impact is severe. It's not negligible. It's not minor, moderate. It's severe because it's risk. Once you select the livelihood and impact, your risk score automatically pops up here, auto populates with the tag. Okay, this is a critical risk. Now we need to add who is the owner for this risk, because every risk should have a owner who is responsible. If something happens, who should we contact? For this risk, let's assume security lead. Description: describe the threat scenario, affected system, and potential business impact. So you need to understand from a GRC perspective, what if this risk happens, and then write a description so that when you are sharing your artifacts to your employer or to any of the hiring managers, they know that okay, this is not someone who has studied GRC. This is someone who know how to run the workflow. So we will add the description. Since this is the customer database, database stores personal identification information, weak multi-factor authentication on privileged, sorry for my spelling guys, oh, sorry, privileged yep, privileged access increases breach risk. This decision rationale is very important, because adding risk is like if you go through multiple GRC programs, multiple videos on YouTube, you will identify risk, which is way easy. But here you have to tell the GRC manager or the interviewer, why did you rate it this way? What made you rate it this way? So it shows your thinking, it shows your how you are thinking as a GRC professional. Multi-factor authentication on admin accounts. So likelihood is high, impact is major because database holds 500,000 personal information records. But here we'll write based on a risk, privilege accounts lack strong multi-factor authentication. personal identification information exposure makes impact very severe. That's how you create a risk. So we need to add 5 risks. So we'll start adding the remaining 4 risks. Uh, but before we add the remaining 4 risks, I want you guys to understand risk scoring is very, very important. You can't just randomly choose, okay, this might not happen. This, even though if it is happening, the impact will be less. So before calculating or before scoring risk, try to understand what is this, why is this more important, why is this more severe, what happens if this risk happens. So before scoring, make sure 1 2 times, okay, on worst case scenario, if this risk happens, what do we lose as a firm, as in from a top level management and from a GRC analyst perspective. So we will add the second risk. We'll add something related to not access control. What are the different categories we have in ISO 27001? Because we are doing a risk assessment for ISO logging. So imagine they don't have a log monitoring system. We can add insufficient centralized logging limits, because most of the startup companies uh, they set up log monitoring system and everything, but they don't go and review it on time basis. So this is something very important. Security incidents. Insufficient centralized logging limits detection of security incidents. This one is not access control. This is an application security. And again, as I told you guys, we'll keep the status open so that we can go and review in the risk heat map and risk register. Likelihood, how likely it is going to happen? Yes, it is possible. Most of the companies might not look. Sometimes after 3 4 weeks they just go back and say, oh, there are security incidents which we completely missed out. What is the impact? It will always have a the reason why I'm scoring this risk on possible and major. I'm trying to have all different kinds of risk so that I can show you guys in the risk heat map and explain it better. So this one is high, it's automatically calculated. The score is 3 into 4, high. So who is the owner for this risk? Again, we add security lead as the owner. What is the description? So as I said, logs are not centrally collected. So they have very less visibility into suspicious activity, right? Why did I rate this way? Because it has limited visibility, and whenever a limited visibility, it increases dwell time and delays response. Our third risk, what else we can add in the third risk? In ISO 27000, incident response is one good such thing, because most of the startup companies, they are behind deliverables. Sometimes they have funding pressure. Sometimes they have strict audits to follow. Sometimes they are really busy in releasing the new features. So sometimes missing out or having completely missing out having a plan on incident response happens. So we'll add absence of formal incident response process, delays, breach containment. Absence of formal incident response process delays breach containment. So when you don't have an incident response plan, it becomes very difficult in order to contain. What incident response, what it comes under complaints. Status is again open. Likelihood, again, I'm going to mark it possible 3, because this is possible, it can happen, and impact is major. This is somewhat closer to the previous risk we have added. CISO will be the owner here for this particular risk, because he CISOs are the one who's responsible for having an incident response plan, not the GRC analyst. Description: no documented incident response plan. Why do I rate it this way? Because any delayed response increases operational and reputational damage. The reason behind is that if they can't able to, if it has delays in breach containment, then the business recovery will be very difficult, and they can lose their revenue, they can lose their goodwill. So delayed response increases operational and reputational damage. We click create. Yeah, we are done with 3. I'll make sure we'll go a little fast, guys. I know it's beyond 5. What else risk can be added? We added asset, which is an employee laptop. If there is an employee laptop, if people are using it, there is obvious reasons they will, anytime in their career, they have seen phishing. Nowadays it's very common that people are receiving phishing emails, and people are becoming the weakest link in the CIA triad. So we'll add something related to phishing. Employee endpoints susceptible to phishing. What happens if it leading to? What happens if a phishing occurs? People try to steal credentials first. Credentials compromise, and that's how they take control of your systems. And if anything goes wrong in phishing, who is the one who does it? It's the human who clicked the phishing email, right? So we will see it's a human error. The category goes into human error, because most likely happens. We see phishing emails on everyday basis. This is again major. The reason it's major is that if phishing happens and if you lose your credentials, then that's it. He can take access of your system, and that's where from then he can access database or whatever the roles been assigned to you. It can be easily accessed by the threat actor. Who is responsible? The IT operation teams are responsible. Make sure they have firewall. They're blocking the emails which are coming outside from their domain or from their vendors. So IT operation team is will be the owner for this. Employee laptops are vulnerable to phishing. Employee laptops are vulnerable to phishing and I'm kind of repeating the same title in a different way in description because that's what happens. Why did I rate it? Phishing is very, very, very common and enables lateral movement, which we don't want. Done. We have completed 4 risks. For the 5th risk, what categories can we go? Uh, we have completed the employee endpoints. We have completed the asset. We have completed access control. The logging is okay. Vendor risk can be added. Give me a second. Yep. Lack of vendor security increases third-party exposure. This one comes under vendor risk. Again, the status will be open. The likelihood of having lack of vendor security. Sometimes what happens is that even though they have a good security assessment for vendors, they don't go back and review it or change it accordingly. Sometimes if they are onboarding new vendors and the new vendor having a whole kind of different risk, and if you're following the same previous risk assessment, what you're using for vendors, again it will be an issue. So this falls under possible, and the impact is major. Who is responsible here? The GRC manager, sometimes the GRC analyst. These are the people who are responsible for doing the security assessment for vendor. Description: vendors onboarded without formal security review. And this is what happens if you don't review your vendors. Threat can come in different ways. Very recently, I'm not sure. It's one of the very famous brand company where they were using POS machine for purchase. They didn't know that this machine was from China. They bought it for very less in some random apps. Some vendor purchased it and they started selling it by printing their logo and name in it, and they don't know what type of security features it had, whether they followed any frameworks. Is it really good? People wanted a very less cost product, so they bought it, and once they bought it and start using it, each and every transaction starting from their credit card details, debit card details, their the 3 digits pin, their expiry dates, name, everything, the NFC code. The Chinese, the threat actors from the China, they were accessing it, and it was a very very big impact. The most impact is on the lower middle class because they wanted local businesses, because they wanted a very less cheap product so they can use it and increase profitability, but ended up losing all their customer credit card details, and they also been legally sued by the customers as well. So this is very 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 important. If you are a GRC analyst, vendor risk is something that you will be doing on day-to-day basis. Organizations inherits supplier. Here, the supplier is nothing but the vendor. Supplier risk without due diligence. So basically, you're taking someone's risk on your own head if you're not doing your due diligence. Did we complete all 5? Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Done. Next, controls. How many controls we need to add? We need to add 5. We need to implement 5 controls. This is my favorite way of implementing controls. What people do here is that since they have their risk, now we are doing ISO 27001 risk assessment, right? They'll go to the categories, go line by line, control by control, and check whether it's applicable for them or not. My way, our lab way of doing it more practical is that we will go to risk register, see what are the risks we have. We have an access control risk. We have an human error, employee endpoints. We also have a log limit, which comes under the application security. Formal incident response process, breach containment. This again comes in complaints. Risk of vendor security assurance. So we'll start with top to bottom. We'll start with external attacker exploits weak multi-factor causing unauthorized access to customer data. If you guys go to frameworks, and what are we doing today? We are doing an ISO 27001 risk assessment. Click ISO 27001. What do we need? Access control. If you want to search, go ahead, search here. The same thing appears. Did I spell it wrong? Yeah. So instead of reading all 93 controls, how many controls have you have to read now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. By reading 6 controls, you will able to identify which control is suitable for your risk. So we will see which controls are suitable. Access control rules, establish rules. What was a risk initially we had? External employees make unauthorized access to customer data. Okay. We go back to frameworks. We click access control. We see here if there is anything related to unauthorized access. Access controls, access, privileged access. Yeah. Secure authentication. See, if your risk is someone can able to break if your multi-factor authentication is weak, then what you need is secure authentication. So we will click add here. Once you click add here, what happens is that it will automatically add it to your controls. You can come here, edit. Okay, if you're using ISO 27001, what was the reference number we had? I hope it was 8.5. Yep, Annex A control dot 8.5. Effectiveness, how effective it is, whether the control is partially effective, whether it is ineffective, or whether we have tested it or not. So for all the controls, I'm going to select effective because we know that we are only choosing 5 controls for our project. So each and every control has to be effective so that we can complete the project and generate a report. Frequency, how frequently this has been done? Is it continuous, or is it done monthly once, or it is quarterly or annual? Anything which is secure authentication, in my opinion, it has to be continuous thing. Who is the owner? If you are selecting the ISO controls from the framework tab, it will automatically pick the owner to be announced, to be discussed. But here we know this is a secure authentication. Which team has this? Identity access management team. Okay, this is description automatically being added based on the control description. Either if you want, you can leave it as it is, but if you want to write your own description, it's completely no problem. Again, the decision rationale, why this effectiveness rating? Why are you rating it? What is the reason? For me, we read risk 1, we understood what was the risk, we came to frameworks, we searched for the appropriate controls which we need for our risk. So if we make this control, what happens? It mitigates risk 1 from unauthorized access, because this was our main concern, right? We had this risk. What if we had weak authentication, weak multi-factor authentication? Someone can easily access, right? Via weak authentication, right? We update. So now we go back to the risk register again, see what is our second risk, and based on our second risk, we again select the controls from there. And once we select the controls, and then we can come back and basically update here. So instead of going back and forth based on the time constraint, I know 5 controls regarding the risk what I have added. So I'm gonna quickly go ahead and add controls from here, so it will be easy. The second one is it's up to you guys how controls you can assign all the controls to one risk and complete the project, or if you want to assign each control for each risk, it's up to you. But end of the day, the hiring managers only sees how capable are you mapping controls to frameworks. That's what they want. They don't want someone can go through all 93 controls and map all each and every control to the risk. That's not happens in real life. If that is the case, the GRC program won't work. So what we do is that we will have enforce multi-factor on. Since we talked about the secure authentication, we will go ahead and continue adding the same privilege access review, because we had weak authentication. So process ISO. What was the privilege? See, I have to go back and refer. This is the same problem you will end up while practicing. Even though I was remembering the controls, now out of my mind, I don't remember. Now I have to, I'm canceling it. Let me go back to risk register. What was the second risk we have? It's employment endpoints. This is employment phishing incidents and insufficient logging. This was the second risk we added, right? And this all comes to application security. Okay. Absence of formal incidents response, lack of vendor security assurance. Uh, got it. This will be okay. We'll start by one. Let me add this employee, where we can add who will be the response if if this is related to phishing. I'm thinking as a GRC analyst, the same thing you guys need to do, because if it is a laptop, it's being handled by employees for daily operations is what we wrote, right? Daily operations. And let me open up, see, employee laptops are vulnerable to phishing and credentials. Okay, if that is the case, then employee need training on not how to click the how to differentiate what are genuine emails and what are phishing emails. So in that case, I go to controls or I go to frameworks, click all categories, employee training. Okay, there is no control called employee training. What if we type training? See, awareness and training, policy and governance. This is what we need. So we select the control, we go back, we update here. This comes into ISO. What was reference number we had? Training, right? It's 6.3. Okay, 6.3 controls. Okay, this is undefined. We'll have 6.3. It's effective. Awareness and training. Normally, if you work in a company, no one is going to call you every day. Okay, John, you have to spend 3 hours every day and then complete this training. Basically, you will be working. All the training either happens monthly, quarterly, or yearly. So, on a GRC perspective, if this is regarding phishing, I would assume this is annual. They'll give you annually or quarterly, but I'm selecting annual. Who is responsible to give the training? That's the HR team. You ask me, I'll tell you. When I was working as a HR, I was responsible to make sure each and every department gets their appropriate training. Because when I worked in a manufacturing company, they were engineers. They had this PLC programming and other stuff. In Canada, there is something called what you call field work. If you work in certain engineering departments, you have to complete a training program, which is every year you have to complete it and submit it to the government. So I know what type of training goes through. Regarding phishing, the security team, it always used to be annual, because when you have more training schedule, people won't be interested. So what we add, mandatory phishing and security awareness training. Yeah. Why this effective rating? Because this mitigates phishing based credential compromise. We have added 3. So what we didn't add a reference here. It's absolutely no point. Once you understand the control, you can go back and search for controls. We need to add 5. What I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna go to risk register again. Instead of filling everything, now this is application security under category. Logging was the issue. They don't have a centralized logging limit. So detection of security incidents. Frameworks, do we have logging? Yeah, we have logging. So what do we need? We actually need both logging and monitoring, because they don't have a centralized log monitoring thing, and they're not monitoring as well. So what I'll do, I select both. We'll come here, go to controls, we'll edit it. ISO 27001, effective. Again, I'm really bad at looking at the controls number framework. 815, 816. Okay, got it. 815. It's effective. Logging has to be continuous. Your SIM tool needs to monitor it. It needs to pull the logs, and it has to send it to SIM, and so it's a continuous process. So the frequency is continuous. Who is responsible? The security operations manager, the SOC manager. Because since this is log monitoring, okay, collect logs and preview. Okay, we'll leave as it is, and we'll add why this effective rating. The lack of centralized log monitoring. Will increase security events. We're going to do the same thing here. ISO 27001, effective monitoring has to be continued. Who is the owner here? SOC manager. Again, the description will be same, logging and monitoring. we will be adding one more. Is it 4 or 5 controls? I think it's, yeah, 5. So we basically need to add one more control. Where is our risk register? We'll go back, absence of formal incident response process. We didn't add anything for vendor security. We will go back, click all category, try for vendor. Oh, supplier maybe. Yep, see, supplier security. For time being, let's imagine we are going with supplier security because we didn't access. What else we have also, supposing supplier service monitoring, supplier agreement security. This is only for supplier security requirements. Okay. The risk was mentioned that, what was the risk mentioned? It clearly shows that lack of vendor security assurance increases third party exposure. So we go here, supplier, right? Yeah. Supplier security requirements. See, we got it, 520. We'll click it, go to controls, supplier, ISO 27001, effectiveness, effective. Uh, we don't often continuously do it. This can be done with vendor assessment quarterly once, or whenever. I think it's mostly appropriate to do it annually, because once you sign up, once you onboard a vendor, initially you do a security assessment. So once the security assessment is done, then I don't think it requires for quarterly. For time being, let's assume we are going with annual. So every year once, you review your vendors, your supplier security requirements, and assess them. If there is something that you need evidence or any certifications they have completed, you ask them for proof. You send them questionnaire where they'll select what they have done, what they have missed out. So you have a clear understanding of what level of risk that you're dealing with. This comes to GRC team. So let's assume GRC manager. The description is already added. Define and manage security requirements for supplier services, including assurance, monitoring, and exit. Why this effect? Vendor assessment reduces security incidents, not security incidents. Threat exposure from them. Update. Now we have completed all the 5 controls. If we go back to the projects, we need to add treatments. What treatments are we going to do? Yeah. So here, whatever the risk we have added, we have to add treatments for the risk. So we'll go through one by one. External attacker exploits weak. This was the first risk. For all the risk, we are mitigating because we are planning to implement controls and have a treatment so that we can reduce the risk. Okay, this is mitigate, planned. Who is the owner? Multi-factor authentication. For example, security lead. This is plan. How are you going to treat this thing? Uh, before you plan something, you coordinate with the different teams. You understand what is the expenditure behind it, because not all treatments are less cost effective. Sometimes it requires more money than bigger than their budget. So before you plan something, it is obvious you need to consult with the appropriate team, understand what is the thing. Since we are taking it mitigate, understand we are planning to like reduce it, increase assign role-based access. What happens when we have role-based access? If if a hacker tries to get a credential of one account, he might not able to access different accounts. He might, if he only got the account of a software developer, the hardly he can only access application. He cannot able to access the customer information and other stuff, right? So this is the plan. I can write detailed, but based on how you are taking this project, you can write accordingly. Second treatment, employee endpoints. Again, this will be one more important thing which I missed out. Whenever you are adding a treatment plan, there has to be 100% due date. Without due date, it's you don't know when it's going to complete. Whether in 6 months or in 1 year or in 5 years, nobody knows. So always have a due date for your treatments. For time being, for all the treatment plans, I'm selecting March 31st. We'll take the second treatment, employee endpoints, mitigate. Again, this is planned. IT operation teams handles it. This is treatment, right? IT operations and HR combined. Yep. What is our third one? Insufficient centralized login limits. Mitigate planned. We'll take the date. Implement SIM and SOAR to collect logs and to monitor the detection of security incidents. Yep. We're done with 3. What is the next treatment? Absence of formal incident response process delays breach containment. Okay, we'll do a plan owner. This goes to CISOs. They are the people.
We didn't have due date.
Thank you. March 31st. What is our last risk? Lack of vendor security assessment risk, third party. Again, we will be mitigating it. The due date. Since this is done annually, even though it's done annually, let's assume we'll select with the owner will be GRC analyst or GRC manager here. Review the current vendor security assessment and improve it accordingly to the current standards to reduce third-party exposure. Great. What happened? Okay, we completed the project. So if you want to go back, look at what all the assets, risk, controls that you have mapped. If you can click review, it will automatically take this. Or if you click asset or whatever the tabs that we have worked, if you can select there, it will show you. Basically, this is your risk register. And since it was zero, initially we before starting the project, I didn't do zero. So let me see whether it removes everything. Okay, this is the health score for our project. If you see here, I only have 3 assets because we only added 3. The risk is 5 risk, 1 is critical. We have 5 controls, which is almost 80% effective. The vendors, we didn't do any projects regarding the vendors, so that is 0. This is our GRC health score. This is our control effectiveness. This is the risk distribution we have. We have 1 critical and the remaining 4 are high. Controls. All the controls we have mentioned as effective. One I think might be clicked as non-tested. Nothing we have quoted as ineffective or partial. So this is the control status. This is the heat map. So it shows you the score basically, and when you click it, if I want to see what is the critical, it will take you to inherent risk heat map and residual risk heat map. This is basically all your risk before controls, and this is your risk basically after treatment. So what happened here? Why our score is 14.4 and again 14.4? We did add controls, right? But we didn't treat it. In order for you to reduce your residual risk map, you need to treat it. So if the treatments, everything has been planned here. See, nothing is in progress. What if we change it to completed? Let's imagine out of 5, we discussed with the CISO gave us the incident response plan. This is completed. IT team has implemented role-based categories. Now no one can access beyond what sort of responsibilities been assigned. So this is completed. If you go back, risk appetite, not the risk appetite, risk register, sorry, the dashboard. See, the risk has been reduced, right? How much it has reduced? By 19%. This is what this lab shows you. This is where you not just randomly just selecting controls. You understand how to select controls. Why are these treatments effective? Since we just changed the 2 treatments, stating that it's been already completed, we have 40% of treatment coverage out of 5. So, okay, we completed project, we reviewed it, everything is good. I know what I did. If I want to go to an interview, how will I show this artifacts? That's the reason I built a tab called Portfolio Builder. When you click it, directly from here, you can share portfolio, export it to GitHub, share it on LinkedIn, and if you want that own HTML page of what you have done, the report, you can download it and you basically preview everything. Since out of 12 projects, we completed 1. I thought I'll complete the video walkthrough for 30 minutes, but this project literally took time. 100%. Once you click it, what happens here? See, you don't need to worry about what to write in your resume. Project summary, It shows you led ISO 27001 risk assessment initiative. You took initiative for cloud migration project for 500 employee SaaS company. This is all the project summary, what you have did, the critical information assets that you have found out. You have conducted risk assessment, build risk registered, covering 5 potential threats. These are resume bullet points. After your project summary comes your resume bullet points. For this particular company, this is the project that you have done. This is the framework that you have used, and you have completed 100%. And it shows how many assets, risk controls, evidence. For this project, I have not included evidence, but if you want to include evidence, I will also show you how you guys can include evidence. This is all you need. This is what you say in interview. This is the part hiring managers are interested about. Conducted comprehensive asset inventory and classification for 3 information assets supporting ISO 27001, ISMS implementation, all whatever you have done in your project, it will be automatically added here. But one thing which separates from the enterprise level tool platform and this GRC free platform is that those are built for people who already work. This is for people who are getting trained, who want to have the practical experience. If you see here, decision, rational, and context. What is the context? It shows hiring manager your thinking, how you are thinking, what are you doing, what was your project, what was your business situation before you started the project, why was this project needed. Techstart, right? I think, yeah. Techstart was migrating from on-premise to cloud. This was the situation of the business, right? What was the context? Did ISO 27001 risk assessment. What key decisions made? See, this is very, very important. Based on the answers that you are writing here and sharing it on LinkedIn, your interview question actually changes. Till now, we are done with the technical part. This is hypothetical. They will test your thinking capabilities, how well you can handle pressure, what ways you can think, are you capable of thinking outside the box. So before writing anything, what type of key decisions you made, you need to completely understand the project. I would suggest leave it as it is, complete the project. Once you've done the project, go back, restart it again, add different assets, add different risks, add map different controls, complete the project, come here again, go back, do at least 2 to 3 times the same project. Then you will understand as a GRC analyst what decisions I have to make in regarding to this project, what alternatives I can consider. It then gives you a clear picture rather than just adding it right now. No one will ask you why you missed it, but if you make mistake, that's when the problem starts. What challenges you overcome? Did you face any obstacles? Did your auditing was not supporting you? Where the security lead who was responsible for handling the weak multi-factor authentication is not responding. He's dealing in some serious critical infrastructure project. So you can write down there. I was having this particular challenge with this audit. These were the obstacles I faced, and these were the results, the business outcomes, whatever the metrics. Again, guys, here you have every metrics. This was your GRC health score. You can write down from 50, the overall GRC score for my project was 67. The risk score was 53. I was able to map almost 80% of the control effectiveness, and Here it goes. These were the high risk, and whatever the outcomes that you get, you can directly add it here. This is where the supporting evidence. Imagine I did everything. Whatever I write is my imagination. How do I show it to the hiring manager? How will the technical lead, the hiring manager, the GRC manager who is interviewing me will believe it, right? What I'll do, I go here, I completed asset. Let me take a screenshot. Go here, I built a risk register. Let me take a screenshot. I did controls. We did really good on controls. Treatments. Other than screenshots, if you have any policies you have written for the project, if you have any links, any JSON file you want to add, you can happily add it. Go here, click upload evidence. So for example, this was the one we did. Let me close this and add it here. See, I have added my supported evidence. Same way, you guys can add your screenshots, and right after, once you don't need to copy nothing, just click LinkedIn share, post it to LinkedIn. Are you guys can able to see my LinkedIn thing? Yep. Now click post. What you need to do is that go back here. You see button, copy button, right? When you click it, you'll copy it. Go back to LinkedIn again. See, you have a very well-defined GRC project, what you have done, what were your key metrics, what were your key accomplishments that you have done. Evidence, I already took the screenshots, which I can able to add it here. Boom, you guys have a project now. Directly walk into an interview, say, hey, this is what I did. And for one time, if you're doing it, it might be a little difficult, but if you keep on practicing again and again, it will open up multiple viewpoints, and it will actually help you to learn the GRC perspective. But whenever you're completing a project, uploading it, posting it in LinkedIn, try to tag me or Moses, so that what happens is that we will comment on your portfolio. We will repost your projects that you have done so that it gets visibility. 90% of the time, what happens is that people do it. They save artifacts. If your resume is not that great, if you apply for positions, your resume might not be picked. If your resume might not picked, the hiring manager doesn't know how valuable candidate they are missing. But if you are in LinkedIn, if you are posting regularly, updating your projects, your portfolio, each and everything, where you get credibility, you can simply take that screenshot as well. Yeah, I did a project and 49 people have liked my project, and I got responses from these GRC practitioners, these GRC managers. It will increase your confidence level, and make sure after the same thing I'm repeating again. The more you do the projects, the better perspective you will have as a GRC analyst, because here we are not memorizing ISO 27001 controls. If you guys have noticed me, for each and every control, I didn't even know what risk I have added. I went back, looked at the risk register, because we added here only 5. Imagine if you're going for if you're working in a company where your risk register is huge, has multiple risks, and is being untreated from so many days, it's your responsibility. You have to come back, do the same thing again and again. So pick one workflow and keep on repeating the workflow until it becomes your story. So then it will be easier for you guys to crack the interview. And regarding an update towards my GRC lab, I'm working on a app update version. No one has ever done it. I don't know. I thought I didn't want to say. Initially, the session was only for 1 hour. Now it's been extended till 6 now. I want to reveal update for Moses audience only. I'm working on update in the same GRC lab. You will have your own GRC AI agent. If you are stuck anywhere, you don't know what asset to add, you don't know what risk to add, you can't understand what is a control. Instead of going to ChatGPT, this will be your GRC analyst. You can come here, type it, ask questions, it will explain you each and everything. Even though after building this GRC AI agent, the lab will be completely free. I'm not going to make this as a subscription. We will be using an absolute free technology called WebLLM and WebGPU. WebGPU runs on your browser. So whatever data that you are entering will stores in your browser, will never leaves your browser. So it's taking a little bit of time, even though before this session, I was doing project, I found a couple of issues, I was working on it, but very soon, the GRC AI agent will be available in our GRC lab. And one more thing, I know how difficult it is to transition into a career which is completely new. Someone might be from healthcare, like Moses said, his students are from a healthcare as well, who broke into GRC. If you are doing it, if you feel that certifications are expensive, if you can't afford certification, this GRC lab will become your identity. Within 2 weeks, there were 2,400 active users. If you guys start using it, share it as much as possible. What if the active users increases, people start recognizing your projects. The projects that you will be doing will have real credibility. That was my goal. That was my issue when I wanted to practice GRC. I didn't have this thing. And when I built it, I could have gone for subscription based model, but I know how difficult it is to come out of it and make things happen. So this project will forever stay as a community project, and that's a promise from my end. And thank you so much. I know it's little difficult. I took 1 more hour. Sorry for my delayed explanation. I hope you guys enjoyed this project. And next, we can continue with the Q&A sessions.